Welcome or welcome back to Solidarity on the Bench, a podcast for 20-somethings by a 20-something. I'm your host, Katie Yu, and on this podcast, we talk about everything and anything with a focus on mental health and personal well-being. New episodes every Tuesday at 11 a.m. PST. I am joined today with Mike Pridgen, or if you know him better as Mike Needs a Plan. You kind of blew up on both TikTok, Instagram at the same time, and you are kind of a force of the internet right now. I'm so excited to be talking to you. We've been getting to chat DM, but this is the first time we've been hanging out one-on-one. So Mike, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's not often people go viral for a good reason. So I'm pretty happy that my reason was pretty good and that
Oh,
people have been really
absolutely.
kind to me.
Yeah, so speaking of, can you kind of give me and the audience a brief overview of who you are and what you do in the online space?
Well, I didn't know I was going to have to dox myself. Hey, I'm Mike. I lost 110 pounds, but I'm most proud of keeping that weight off. And together, we're going to do the same thing, not through meal plans, not through rigorous exercise, but through kindness. How does that work? It doesn't. I'm a fraud. But it's been good. One of the most important things I had to learn along my 110-pound weight loss journey was to be kind to myself. It always ended up being that when I was mean to myself, when I would hurt myself, would be when I would regress. So it wasn't just the weight loss, it was the mind. The mind needed to be fixed. The
hmm
weight was kind of just a result of it.
And I love your mindset content. I want to get into that in a bit, but I ask all of my guests this, and maybe it's kind of good that you didn't look at the question list, but everyone answers this one question. When was the last time you asked for help?
I need to ask for help on this question. I have a really rough time asking for help, as a lot of
Mm-hmm.
us do, but I've got a workaround for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not saying I don't know. I'm saying I don't know. As in, when I need help, I'll often phrase that as I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to find that number one, it takes the onus off of me of feeling like I have to ask for help, which is something that I'm working on. I'm still working on things. We all should be. But also, I get to learn something because people are all too eager to tell you what they know and what they want to teach you. And when you say, I don't know, it sort of empowers people to help you out anyway.
Yeah, I was watching this TikTok actually, and this is kind of something I watched today, and I think you might resonate with this as well, is when you ask someone for help, it feels like an inconvenience to them, and like that's why I don't do it, right? I don't want to inconvenience the people around me and take up space. And that's a whole different conversation, but the person in the TikTok was saying, when you ask for help, the people in your life want to be inconvenienced by you. And they choose to be in your life day in and day out because they want you to inconvenience them. And by asking them directly with what you need, and you're able to phrase, exactly what you need and what you need in that moment, you're giving them the privilege and the gift of helping you. And that's how I like to reframe it. And a lot of people that I've brought on this podcast have said, like, I am so bad at asking for help. And I think that's the power of asking this question, is like normalizing that everyone hates doing it, but everyone does it and it's okay. And you are not a worse person for needing someone else's help. You are actually better for it and you are so much stronger for it.
Well, Katie, let me ask you this. How
hmm
do you feel when someone asks you for help?
That is a great question. I love helping others. And it's even better when they know exactly what it is that they need help with.
Mhm.
It's going beyond I need help, which again, I'll problem solve with you. We'll figure out what exactly I can do to help you. But when you come to me with a problem and also a solution that I can help you with, that is like the creme of the creme. And that comes from, very deep, like self-understanding of what it is that you need, like how you accept help and how you need to be helped. But yeah, I love helping others. And I was actually telling someone in my life recently, I was like, I actually love it when you rant to me about your day.
Oh, I
And
love
like,
that.
and the person was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm been so
Mhm.
negative. I'm ranting. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, I want you to talk to me about your day. I want to hear about it, good, bad, and ugly, because
Mhm.
you're in my life and I'm choosing to have you in my life and I want to hear about everything that's going on, and it makes me happy because it feels like this is now a two-way relationship. And cuz sometimes I feel like I ask for too much in a relationship. And so when that person mirrors back and also asks me to give them a listening ear or to give them advice, I feel useful in that relationship. So again, like I love when people
Mhm.
come and ask me for help.
So, what greater of a gift and how easy of a gift to give than to give someone the opportunity to feel that, to feel useful and to feel wanted and needed, just like we so desperately need sometimes.
Exactly. And I will reverse that onto you. And so maybe next time, if you're ever on the podcast, when I ask you when was the last time you asked for help, hopefully you'll have an answer for me.
I'm going to have to write something down. I'm going to need
So
help remembering. That's what I'll need.
you're like, I don't know. So I want to talk a little bit about mindset, and that's kind of why you blew up was this idea that, you're not focusing on weight plans and exercise plans and any of that. You're focusing on the person behind the weight loss journey. And you have this mantra that you always end your videos on, which is be kind to yourself. And I want to say, once I started watching your videos, every time they pop up, I know that's what you're gonna say, and it always serves as, like, an incredible reminder for me to be kind to myself. So I wanna ask
Mhm.
what the story behind that mantra is, and what does being kind to yourself mean to you?
I give a lot of advice. I don't really give a whole bunch of advice in my videos. What I do is I ask questions to try to scratch a part of your brain that you need scratched that maybe you didn't know you needed scratched.
Mhm.
But the advice that I do give, the one piece of advice that I feel is important enough to mention in every video is be kind to yourself. People always ask me, what's the number one thing? How do you lose weight? I'm not really a weight loss channel. That's the secret.
Mhm.
I'm a being kind to yourself channel. It's just I tend to speak best to people who lose weight because that's kind of where I live. But where that started was from a place where I was not very kind to myself. I've not always been here. I was my own worst enemy for a very long time. And it sort of culminated to a point back in June of 2023, last year.
Mhm.
I had gone to the gym after a terrible binge because they still happen. They've become less frequent, but I was already 5.5 years into my weight loss journey at that point, and I was pretty much at the same weight I'm at now. And I was going to the gym as my schedule dictated, and I was feeling terrible. And I walked up to the gym, and I was just sort of where I drove up to the gym, and I was just sitting there in my car for like an hour and I was thinking up every excuse not to go in. I'm like, I can just go in there tomorrow. If I go in there now, I'm not going to have that great of a workout because I just feel terrible. And as I was about to pull out, I caught my reflection in the tinted window next to me. And I saw my own face like distorted and bulgy and a little sad. And it just kind of
Mhm.
looked like me years ago. And I'm like, I can give up on myself real easy, but I can't give up on him. And so we went into the gym together and I
Mhm.
got to sort of take him through my workout routine and be like, look at what we can do now. Look at how much I can do. Look, when I drop my phone, I can bend over to pick it up without having to think of canceling my phone plan.
Mhm.
And I kind of reckoned with myself and realized that nothing that I had done or nothing that I could do that day would have been possible had it not been for the version of me that started the journey, the version that I had spent so many years running away from. And he started this journey knowing nothing. He knew nothing at all. He didn't even know what success looked like. He didn't know it was coming, but he decided to try it anyway. And if that guy could be kind to me, I can be kind to me. And like a month later, I once I started talking about that on TikTok, that's when people found me, and then Instagram and everything from there. But that's kind of the sort of the onus of the kindness in general. It started before that, but that was kind of the moment that it was like solidified. I need to commit myself to this.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow, I feel like I had like a little out of body experience with a little bit of chills. Like the way you tell stories is so captivating, and I see myself in that mindset as well. Like I can't relate to you one on one of being like I've also been on a weight loss journey. I can't do that. But in the sense that like I've had mindsets where like I'll push myself out of hate and like out of fear that I'm not good enough, or out of, yeah, just a negative mindset as opposed to a positive one. And it's been very recently. I want to say honestly, probably around the time I started seeing your content is when I've been able to switch my mindset about everything that I do. And instead of going to the gym specifically and like working out now is a lot more fun for me, because instead of going and working my body from this place of lack or this place of like, I need to change it, or I know this is good for me and I should do it, and all this like should. I now do it because I'm like, isn't it cool to test the limits of my physical body? Like, isn't it cool to decide to do something and be able to follow through and do it? And I think that your message of being kind to yourself, although it's like definitely not unique, I think the way that you deliver it and the questions that you ask make make people reflect and make people think, and that's why you've done so well on social medias, because you approach it from this like very honest, authentic, vulnerable side where you're like, this is a video and it's not about me, it's for you, and it's very much like you reflect on you. And I'll kind of tell you about my journey, but what I really want to do with my journey is show you the reflections that I've had and ask them and turn them on yourself. And so I feel like every time we're in conversation, I take so much time to reflect on my own journey, and I think that that's a really powerful thing that you do, and I wanted to commend you and also vocalize that. But yeah, in the sense that I see that as well, and especially when you were telling that story of me being like, now I'm doing things because I'm like, look at how cool I am. Look at how well I can do these things.
And you do so well, all of the things that you've shared with me. And, you and I have talked quite a bit in the
Mhm.
background, and you've told me about some of the fears that you've had. And they sound a lot like the fears that I've had. And the things that I've told you is that a person who doesn't care as much as you do would not do as well as you do with the people who watch, the people who are listening to this podcast right now. Obviously, we've got some of my people here, but there are people that tune in for you every week because your name is on the show and you make them feel the same way that I've made you feel, hopefully. And that doesn't come without worrying about whether or not you're doing well enough. Is that kind of where some of your self sabotage has come from?
Oh, yeah, I feel like what if I cry on this podcast, right? Like this is like my therapy session almost. But
It
yeah.
happens. It's okay.
But yeah, I mean like I feel like every time I need to no, literally. I'm a Pisces, everyone. I'm emotional, it happens.
I'm an Italian. So like, I'll send you some food. That's how we deal with emotions. That's kind of why I was in the situation I was in.
Yeah. So some of my questions are kind of about mindset.
Mhm.
Um, and if you have any kind of like actionable ways or little steps that people can take to start implementing a healthier mindset, especially one around kindness.
Start start thinking about the ways that you're unkind to yourself, but from the perspective of someone you care about. Like, what would you hate to tell your best friend that you did to yourself? What would you hate to tell Sophia right now?
A lot.
She might be listening. Now's your time to
I
tell her.
so yeah. No, it's true. I think once I started bouncing off my brain onto someone else, like be it Sophia, be it other people in my life, and they're like, whoa. that's really mean. Like I would net like why you think why would you say that? Or even, once you type it out, I think you realize how mean you are. And if you don't have that external stimuli, it just kind of lives in your body. And I've always had this problem and this struggle of not realizing that I was mean to myself. I don't know if you can relate, but it was just like the way that I was talking to myself, that's just how I believed that I talked to myself. And I didn't understand or recognize that like it was actually baseline very mean.
Oh, incredibly. I mean, who do you think my videos are for? You're just eavesdropping into a conversation I'm having with myself. And
Mhm.
one of the things I'll often tell people who look to me in admiration for whatever reason is I'm talking to me. I'm not talking to you. So if you relate to these messages and you look to me as any beacon of hope, we are the same. I go out to that trail without any thoughts there's no thoughts behind these eyes. And
Mhm.
then I go out to the trail and I think of what I want to say and I start talking. And I work through stuff out there. I've cried on my videos. You've seen me cry probably a couple of times.
Mhm.
I can't fake that. That comes from working through stuff. And the only way that we can sometimes work through stuff, and I've said this in videos before, talk to yourself. That's one way that you could take a step towards being kind to yourself. It
Mhm.
tends to help when you have the camera there in front of you so you don't look crazy. But it's it helps me a whole lot to talk to myself.
Kind of off kilter. I'm wondering, do you journal at all, or is this kind of like your form of journaling is making these videos?
This is my form of journaling. I don't know if I can write. I don't know if I've picked up a pen in a couple of years. Well, that's not true. Now I've got clients, so I write notes down for them. But I'm sort of journaling for them. For me, it's been a long time since I've like sat down and written something. For those who don't know, maybe you don't know, I come from the stand-up comedy world.
Mhm.
It's I wasn't any good at it, otherwise I'd still be doing it. But I was making some money there, and that was the last time that I really sat down and wrote stuff. For this, it's all talking.
Mhm.
Everything I do is just talking out loud and seeing what comes from it.
And I love what you were saying, like, we're just kind of glimpsing into what you needed. I feel the exact same way with like my kind of content as well. As like people are like, "Oh my God, how do you come up with this?" It's just like if I had a bad day, this is what I need to hear. So I then sit down and I think about exactly what I need to hear and I let it out creatively and like sometimes it resonates with people, more often than not, and that's incredible and very cool. But like the reason why I started and the reason why I'm still going is because this is just for me, you know?
Mhm. And you do all the time. You'll mention things like, "Hey guys, I had a rough day," or like in your broadcast channel, you'll say stuff, or in your stories, and you're just telling people, "Hey, um, I'm not doing super great right now, but on the other side of that, I know that things are going to be okay." You
Mhm.
had an incredible run recently. Want to tell
Was it the
everyone
one
how
I
far you
fell?
ran? No, no, let's not talk about that part. Let's talk about what you did before that.
I know.
How
This
far
is
did you run?
this is me needing to be kind to myself. So I ran 10 miles. It was okay. Strava said it was 9.5. I'm 100% convinced I paused it for a mile. You can even see it on my graph. It was definitely 10 miles. And I mean this goes back to the topic of the conversation. Like then as I was running, I was doing my celebratory like half mile finish. I was kind of circling around the block where I lived in. I ate it. It's like so hard. And today was actually the first time that I have run since then. And it was funny because I was back on that treadmill and I was maybe this is good story to tell, like mentally not there. I was running and I was like, what if I trip? What if I fall? And I still have bruises. I still have a big cut that hasn't scabbed over from that fall. And there's so much fear in me still to this day. I mean, it's only been like 5 days, but like right now about running and I need to remember to be kind to myself. And I'm working towards running a half marathon. I think I've just been running to run and to prove to myself that I can, which I think is a very healthy mindset that I've never really adopted. Now it's kind of funny. Now I'm like training and I'm actually gonna try. And I'm gonna something I talked about was like in 2024, I want to stop pretending like I don't care and I actually just want to try and like what if I fail? Like that's okay and I can fail publicly. And so the half marathon thing is funny because I was like, I'm gonna sign up for this on a whim and we'll see what happens. And now I'm like actually committed to it and I'm actually really invested in it. But yeah, I ran 10 miles and I didn't let myself feel proud of myself because I was so upset that I fell. And I actually came home and started bawling my eyes out, not because I fell, but because I didn't hit 10 miles, which I thought was the funniest part. Um, and I just need to remember to be kind to myself then. I need to be kind to myself about my run today. I was reminded today, I was like, oh yeah, I had to tap out at 5K. Like that sucked. It was like pretty slow for me. And my friend was like, yeah, but a 5K is a 5K. And 90% of the world doesn't run. So if you can run a 10K, you're still doing a lot better than like most of the people who can't run. And you're
Mhm.
slow. Your version of slow is so much faster than what you were doing 2 months beforehand. So you
Oh,
need to
for
remember
sure.
to be kind to yourself. And so going back to the actionable step, just, texting people your thoughts, good or bad or whatever. And like it's so powerful because then you have an outside influence telling you like actually you're being really hard on yourself.
Mhm.
Like that's impressive and that's cool and you should be nice.
Well, let's take kindness out of the nebulous for a second and just look at this accomplishment. If there is something 10 miles away that I have to drive to, I have to think about it.
Hmm.
I'm like, is there anything closer that we could do? Like, I don't know. I think I'm going to need a nap before that. You ran that. But what the most important thing that you did, what happens if you fall? What happens if you trip again? You already know what happens.
You get back up.
You got up. No, it's not in the future. It's not a question. You did. You got back up and you did. And not only did you get back up, but you're like, screw this. I'm doing a 5K. I'm going to put all this into practice. Look at you. You didn't just get up, you jumped. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the whole mindset thing, to go back to the fall, it was so funny because I fell and I sat there, right? And I was laughing at myself and like, the ego was bruised. I was telling people on my story like I'm okay. It's my
Yeah.
ego that's healing. Um, but truly, I just sat there and I laughed and I was like, you know what? Like, whatever.
Mhm.
Like that sucked. I didn't like hit the 10 miles. And yeah, I was really hard on myself for not hitting that 10 miles. That was like actually looking back on it, kind of a funny thing to be really upset about. Um, but I think in the very recent months, something has clicked in me where I'm just like, yeah, whatever happens, happens. Like I'm practicing a lot of acceptance in my life. Um, and that has been a powerful mindset change that I've been implementing as well recently.
We're like the only animal that runs, like for long
For
distances.
fun,
Well, yeah, obviously, because yeah, usually when animals are running, it's not because they
not
want
for
to.
fun. Right.
It's but they do it in short bursts. So not only, like your friend said, like most people don't run. Like you are among a very elite few creatures on the planet that do what you do. So that's kind of impressive, just as it is.
I
I
appreciate
certainly
it.
can't do it.
I mean, hey, that's where I was like 2 months ago. I
Mhm.
promise you, I put on my running shoes for the first time mid-December, having never run more than like 4 miles in my entire life. And that even those 4 miles, it took me like 50 minutes, I want to say. Like I was,
Wow.
yeah.
Mid
And so
December.
mid-December. And so the funniest part about all of this,
I
about
mean,
me being hard on myself, about, me being like, oh, that 5K today was like so much slower than I normally run. I have been breaking records in my running. I went from running 4 miles as my longest run, and that was like mentally tough, to running 10 miles and being like, I could have gone more. And it just like it
that's so
shows
cool.
how I know it shows how limiting our mindsets are. And I was telling myself the entire time that like I can't run more than 5K. Like, I can't do that. That's not me. And it goes back to, like the James Clear Atomic Habits. When you shift your identity, you shift your habits. For me, it was like when I shift my identity, I shift my mindset around what I'm doing. And now that I mean, I still have imposter syndrome about calling myself a runner, which is the funniest part. Like, I will never call myself a runner.
Mhm.
And I think that's just, it's gonna take some time. But once I shifted my identity of being like, you know what, I can run, I can do this, then my
Mhm.
mindset followed. And I was then able to be so much nicer to myself. And like, I realized that I hit my runner's high around 3.5 miles, which is over 5K, which I would have never done before because I told myself that like I
Mhm.
was not good enough to do that, which is so funny because
Mhm.
when I actually ran like my first 10K, I was like, you know what? I like this thing. And I would have never known that I like that thing until I tried it with a good mindset and like
Mhm.
with just being like, I'm gonna try and it's okay if I fail, but I want to try a new thing. And us as adults, we don't try very many things because I
Oh,
think we're afraid to be bad. And 2024 for me is the year of just like trying a lot of different things and not being afraid to be not good at them. So I want to know if there's anything that you've tried recently, or if you want to try and you're holding yourself back.
well, you and I have talked about the coaching that I'm doing now. I'm doing one-on-one
Hmm.
coaching, though that's closed. So this isn't even an advertisement for it because I've got all the people that I'm going to be taking on for a while. So that won't be open for a bit. But that was something interesting that I had to do. And just real quick, it's interesting that you mentioned that you don't feel like you're a runner because I don't feel like I'm not still a fat guy.
Hmm.
In my head, I'm still a fat guy, and like the body that I'm in now, I don't really fully identify with,
Hmm.
which is really interesting. But even with being a coach right now, I'm still like, I'm just a guy who got lucky and people wanted to work with me by accident and they fell into my inbox that way. So, like, I currently don't identify as a coach, even though that's my full time, full paying job.
Hmm.
Like, at what point will I consider myself doing this? I don't know, but it's not going to stop me from doing it. It's not
Yeah,
going to
we
stop me from keeping trying. And if somebody in my life did the same thing, tell me this: if someone else in your life had run 10 miles and fell, you wouldn't have told them that they weren't a runner. But because it's us, we can't give ourselves the same grace, can we?
right, right. Yeah, and it's interesting when you say like at what point giving yourself how much time like will you end up switching that mindset? And I mean the answer may truly be we never feel ready. We never feel prepared. And the best part is we do it anyway.
On my podcast, which is something that I should be trying, which I'm sorry to anyone who's coming here chasing me looking for new podcast episodes. I'm so sorry. It's coming eventually. It'll be
Be
back.
kind to yourself, Mike.
Yeah.
You're trying your hardest.
You can't turn that back on me. That's my words. Well, Katie will be a guest on there eventually, of course. Um, but even with that, like, God, I forgot what I was saying. It's totally gone. What was I saying before that?
I have a question for you that's like so out of left field. Do you have a
Please.
voice in your head?
Do I have
Like,
a voice in my head?
yeah.
It depends on when you ask. It like, I mean, the voice used to be very angry, and now it's a little more disappointed. It's like a disappointed parent, which is a huge
Hmm.
improvement from what it used to be because it was the cruelest voice in the whole world. We grow up getting bullied, and those voices eventually echo in our skulls long enough to start sounding like our own. And we have something that the bullies don't, and that is access to all of our deepest fears and insecurities and embarrassments. So we become our most effective bully. No one can bully you better than you. So that was something that I was dealing with for a long time. Now the voice, like when I would do something that would have devastated me before, just something small, the voice has minimized to be more so disappointment than anything.
Hmm.
Of like, Really? Come on. Let's pick it up. Let's get back to it. Of course it happened. Whatever. Let's just move along. And that's great. I could live here, I think, because that doesn't devastate me the same way. I think it kind of encourages me a little bit more to do better.
Mhm. Yeah, it comes from this place of, like, we know we're capable, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is pretty powerful too. It's like you know you're capable of more, and maybe that voice 50-50 is, like, coming from a place of love and a place of just wanting to do more, do better.
But it's interesting to have love be part of the equation now, isn't it?
It is. It is really scary.
Because you
It's
don't feel like you deserve it, do you?
no, no, and I barely talk about this, and so podcast listeners get, like, one and
Ooh.
only ever access. I'm now, like, in a relationship, and I haven't been in a relationship in a really long time,
Mhm.
and we've kind of talked about this, and there's
I'm on the
this
close story, so I've
yeah,
seen.
yeah. There's this, like, piece of me that feels like I don't deserve it, and I think it will always be there. And it's because I'm so mean to myself that, like, having someone who's consistently very nice to me is really, really weird. And it's like something Sophia has said to me that I will echo to the day I die is like, I will be nice to you for the both of us until you learn to be nice to yourself.
She's so sweet.
She's so sweet. Tears in my eyeballs thinking about how I am surrounded by some of the kindest
Mhm.
people ever, you know, but having someone constantly mirror
Mhm.
like how you should act towards yourself. Like again, when I fell, when I tripped, the first thing I did was laugh at myself and then be really hard on myself. The first thing he
Mhm.
did was like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you for running 10 miles. That's incredible. Are you okay? Can I help you with anything?" That's the response. His response is what we need to respond to ourselves. And I'm not used to having this outside like force constantly remind me to be kind to myself. And so, maybe that's where a lot of the growth has come from because
Mhm.
it is so recent of just like having someone be there to mirror how I should act to myself.
I Another podcast exclusive. I am too, which is a very new situation, something that I was not expecting to ever
Mhm.
happen, something that I was opposed to for a very long time. And it just happened to be just the right situation. It feels incredible to have someone that really truly understands you and that you feel like wants to understand you,
Mhm.
in the same way that you want to understand them. And yeah, you are correct. I do not feel worthy of the kindness. I don't feel worthy of that understanding, and yet it keeps coming. And if I
Mhm.
trust this person and I trust what they're saying and I think the world of them, should I not too believe them when they feel that way toward me? It's something I'm reconciling with right now, but I'm lucky to have someone to reconcile that with.
We are on like hilariously very similar journeys in that. Because we're both like, I think that we both got into a relationship around the same time.
It,
And
oh yeah.
being people who don't feel like we deserve kindness towards us, having someone who is just so, yeah, unconditionally kind again and again and again. Doesn't matter if I've yelled at him the night before, doesn't matter if I'm being mean to him, nothing. He'll come back with the same amount of kindness, like above and beyond. And I'm like, this is how life should feel. This is how I should be towards myself. And it's like, I've experienced this in a platonic sense, but there's something so different about it coming from like a romantic partner that just it hits different. Literally, both you and I, man, if you're watching the Spotify video, you're just gonna watch us like cry our eyes out.
Can you just block this part out? Just put our
Yeah,
profile pictures up.
just like a crying emoji on both our faces. Oh my God, yeah.
It's kind of cool to cry tears that aren't from terror and fear and pain, though, right? It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, it's been a scary ride. So, what a blessing it is to get to cry happy tears with a good friend.
Mhm. Mhm. No, 100%. I'm literally thinking, I'm like, how much of that do I want to put on the podcast? I'm so private about
Put
my
it up.
relationship. You
I
know
am.
what I
This is
mean?
the first time I've mentioned it in
Yeah.
that regard. You can, hey, I'll put mine out there if you put yours out there. This is our pact.
I mean, I've told him, I'm like, I will never tag you in the stories. I'll
Oh,
never
say no, we're
publicly do
too
that,
big for that.
right?
Yeah, that's
It's
that's a
with
problem.
he's like, you're gonna like mess up my job. Like,
Not to say like we're big shots or anything, but it
no, but it's
like
like,
we have big audiences. It
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But it's like the people kind of know that he's there.
Mhm.
If they're on the TikTok, if they're in the podcast, I refer to him as a person in my life or
Yeah.
my friend. And then I'm
It's
like,
very
sorry
strange.
when you're listening to this. I do appreciate you. You
Mhm.
are my boyfriend.
Very absolute same. You are my boyfriend too. I'm gonna fight Katie for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, shout
No,
out to
it's
Mike.
true. It is true of thinking of just like the people in your life being a direct mirror of the way that you should act towards yourself. And I even think like I have a really good relationship with my family, which I'm very thankful for. Um,
Wasn't
Definitely worked
always that
hard
way though.
for. Wasn't always that
Yeah.
way. Um, I worked hard for that one though, so proud of that one. And a parent's unconditional love, like you can do so many wrong things and they will be there to bail you out every single time. Like my parents, I think if I landed myself in jail, not that I'm going to, mom, if you're listening to this, um, she would come bail me out in a
Mhm.
heartbeat. And like let's remember that I live nowhere near her right now, like an 11-hour plane ride from her. She would definitely come and bail me out. And that's the kind of love we need for ourselves. I feel like that's a little like woo woo, you know, self-love,
No,
but it's true in the sense that it's like if someone else can show you that unconditional kindness, you also need to show yourself that kindness and that love.
it's hard.
It is
It's
hard.
really hard because, like I said before, we don't feel like we deserve it. But there are so many people in our lives that feel like we do. And part of those actionable steps you were talking about before,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I'll often tell people is like, what would you hate to hear that someone else was going through? And what would you suggest or hope that that person would do about it? When it comes to weight loss, I'll just say, for example, when somebody has a bad day, when they have a binge, what you would not want to hear is that a person you care about was starving themselves or that they were going for a 10-mile run for the purpose of running it off and not for the purpose of I'm a badass and I can do this, because some people will do that. But I posted a fairly abrasive video the other day and I said, this is for the kids. So if you're a parent, just give your
I
phone to the
remember
kids.
that.
And then I
When
dropped to the
my jaw dropped and then I was like, "Oh wait, this is humor. This is humor. This is okay."
yeah, I dropped to the floor and I go, hey, fat ass. And then I
Yeah.
start eating Oreos on the ground and telling them they're not good enough to have them and that they should starve themselves and that they're, get back to me when you're skinny. And then I pop back up into the frame and I say, would you have shown that video to your kids? Because a lot of you are talking to yourself that same way. So, stop it because it's not helping anybody. So, that's an actionable step right there is like, how would you talk to someone else? Because it's certainly not the way you talk to yourself.
And going off of that, something my one of my therapists used to tell me was just like we have that prompt, where you're like, put a picture of you as a child in the mirror and like think about her or him or them every time you're talking to yourself. That didn't work for me. What did work for me though was whenever I was, upset or feeling discouraged or feeling frustrated with myself was just literally just to talk to myself like a child of being like, hey, like, I see that you're upset right now.
Mhm.
You know, What do you need to feel better? Can I get you anything? Let's drink some water together. Let's sit down. Like it'll be okay. And I started by doing it out loud and it felt really stupid. Like it felt really silly. I could only do it, when I was alone. Now I can kind of do it more in my head and I don't need to use any of that like baby talk or baby language. But that was a really good practice for me to implement in like the big question of like how do you shift your mindset? Like it really is just starting with something as simple as like just talk to yourself like you're a child because you're talking to your inner child who's kind of throwing a little bit of a tantrum right now. And like that's okay. And how do you be nice to yourself? How do you be nice to that little child? Because that's what you are right now. Is you're being a little bit of a child.
The inner child is not a concept. It is, the inner child is an active passenger to your life. They're still in there. And you're just now the adult responsible for taking care of them. And perhaps you are the adult that they deserved to have and never did.
Mm-hmm.
And being kind to yourself is finding those little comforts and forgiving that inner child for the things they haven't done or the things that they've yet to do wrong. It's giving that child the permission to be a work in progress and to let them know that it's what a wonderful thing to not be finished yet. It if you can't talk to you that way, talk to the inner child because they're still there and they need you. So be there for them.
And they're proud of you. Like imagine telling your 8-year-old self where you are today and what you had to go through to get to where you are today. Nothing but pride and joy from them, I
He'd
assume.
be kind of mad that I wasn't a dinosaur by now because that's what he was really gunning for it.
I
Didn't
think I
happen.
wanted to be a vet, and then I realized that like vets had to like perform surgery on animals, and I was like, never mind.
Yeah,
Never
that's
mind. I
not
only
good.
like the animals when they're cute and cuddly and not when they're like sick and gross.
That's kind of the only time they show up to the vet, Katie. Like they
Exactly.
don't bring good animals to the vet. My dog's feeling great. I just wanted to let the vet know real quick. How much is that going to be?
It's free. It's free.
It's free. Greatest vet ever. 5 stars.
No,
Google,
exactly.
Yelp. They had to bring back MySpace so that people could post about it.
I would love that. Honestly, that's actually just go to a dog park and I need to touch them. It's like touch grass now. I just need to cuddle a dog or
I just want
something.
to touch a dog.
I just need to touch a
That's it.
dog. Every week I need like a little bit of a dog fix.
That's an actionable be kind to yourself step is touch a dog. Unless you're allergic, don't do that.
Don't do that. Just
Mhm.
look at them. Yeah, I'm in London right now and they all have like the little sweaters on because it's like super cold out. Oh, they're so cute. They're so cute.
If you get a
And
picture, please send me a picture of that.
oh,
That'd
I
be great.
will. I have one lined
Mhm.
up that I'll send to you.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, honestly, as well, I don't know if you're thinking about this, but on the realm of like inner child stuff, I've really been learning how to let my inner child out recently.
Mhm.
And that has been so powerful as well for my mindset of like kind of adopting this childlike joy and like this like awe and wonder. And it's a practice. And this is so funny. I was actually on a date with someone. Um, and we were walking through the parks. And this is not the person that I'm in a relationship with, but
Scandal.
I know, I know. Um, he was telling me that he listens to a podcast and one of the podcast episodes was talking about how to inspire awe into your life. And it really is just to like look up and count the number of trees in the park, I think he was telling me, and how he was like like taking walks without any stimuli, so no headphones, no phone, nothing, and just looking, at life like he was an alien and stuff and all of these like weird things that you normally hear people say. And even though it didn't work out with him, it really impacted me and I think about him every time I walk through the park. My boyfriend does know about him, so it's okay.
Well,
But
you pick up things from everybody,
absolutely. Absolutely. Like you can learn something from
Yeah.
everybody. And I will always remember that conversation because then we went around like looking at the trees, giving them names. And it was like we're like Like I'm 23. I think he was like 24, 25. We're mid 20 adults going around comparing trees, saying one of them was pretty, one of them was not, like
Mhm.
you'd be that tree, I'd be this tree. And like we're trying to like date each other, right? Like we're trying to like figure out if we want to be romantically involved. And the funniest part was we were just going around talking about trees and like in the sense that ever since that conversation, I think about how to inspire awe in my life. And sometimes, it feels forced. Sometimes I feel like maybe I have to fake it a little bit. Um, but just feeling like that sense of like, wow, like this is cool and like taking more of those moments. I guess it's like practicing gratitude, and being better at practicing gratitude in the moment.
Well, two things. Another podcast exclusive. If you ever see me recording something here on this couch, I'm never wearing real pants. These
I
are
saw that.
sweatpants. So, yeah, just so everyone knows, the illusion is broken. I'm not wearing pants in my own home. Get used to it.
But
Um,
you're wearing pants. You are wearing pants. You're just not wearing, you're wearing pajamas.
Sometimes the camera cuts down from here.
Unless you're bending down to talk to the small children.
I've done a few, I mean, especially on my own show. Like, there have been times, I'm not going to say which episodes.
I mean, people, work from home culture. We get it.
That's work from home culture. But I just want to talk about, with my in that childlike wonder with me and mine. She does this wonderful thing. I'm gonna show right here. She made this. First off, look at that watercolor.
Wow.
Her first watercolor ever.
People
And
are
this
so
box
talented.
right here, painted, put together, and all that. Now, let me show you what's inside, because what's inside is also important. Um, I don't
I
know
feel
how.
like out of context, what's inside is also important. Like what a banger line, you know?
So I'm just gonna pull this out here. So first off, look
Wow.
at those cool little cards right there. Now, all of these little things, some of these were picked out for me, but there's one in there specifically. We went to a graveyard, and that little bone right there was one of the things that we found. We were just looking through and trying to find interesting things that, would go into a box. That little piece of wood right there next to the shell was another one that I found when we were on a walk together in a park. And then there's like that little nut right there that was just, it looked like a face.
It does look like a face.
We had
It
just
looks
both
like a like
laughed
a
about it. So, just sort of walking around like little goblins trying to pick out treasures as we walked along our way. Um, that was sort of a sense of childlike wonder too. And now I've got this box of wonderful memories.
and it's so powerful. Like letting your inner child thrive and play and be silly and weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know where this thing of being like the cool girl, be nonchalant, don't care
Mm-hmm.
too much, never worked for me. Absolutely never. The only thing that ever works for me is being weird and silly and goofy and finding someone else who can be weird and silly and goofy with me, whether that be, a romantic partner or just friends. Because if you put on a face to be liked by someone, that they're gonna like that face and that mask that you're putting on, they're not gonna know you enough to like you. They're not gonna like the real you. And then you just get tired and caught in your own lies.
I've done exactly one brand deal. I get reached out to by brands all the time, and I will never do that again. If anyone here is dealing with any of that, you better be solid with that company, like knowing that you agree with them, unless you want to get burned later. Anyway, uh, that all being said, I picked up that first business call with a joke because people say, "Oh, how could you do that? You want to be professional?" No, I don't. I don't want to
Mm.
be professional. If they don't want to work with me and they want to find someone who can play professional, they can find 1,000 people to do that. I don't want to. I'm past it now. I'm going to be me unapologetically, and I'm goofy, and I like making jokes and talking about how I don't wear pants on podcasts. Like, I want to be comfortable. Part of being kind to myself is not being what I think people want me to be anymore. Now, that doesn't mean to be unapologetic asshole. Like,
Mhm.
obvious, but that's not the person I want to be either. I don't want to be obtrusive and angry. I just want to be comfortable.
Yeah, and there's something so powerful about just letting yourself be on the internet. And again, like going back to what I was saying at the beginning, I think that's what has resonated so much with me, at least. I can only speak for myself, but probably the people in your community as well, is just you were so you that, like, even though this is our first time we're actually speaking face to face and like at the same time, you are exactly who I thought you were gonna be. I think
I
that's the
hope
biggest
so.
compliment too, you know? It's like
That's huge.
you are exactly the way you portray yourself on the internet. You are so consistently exactly who I thought you were gonna be.
I'm just really good at faking it at this point. I'm a monster. Wait for the scandal. It's coming.
I'm obsessed with your cat. Ugh. See, I need to
Yeah,
touch
she's so
fur.
soft. She is so soft, like unbelievably soft. Aside from her teeth, which I feel all the time, which are not so soft. Luckily,
There's
that wouldn't be good. I'd have to bring her to the vet, but not the nice vet that just
not
says nice things
me.
about animals. No,
You wouldn't bring her
not
to
you.
me. I only take, the
Ridiculous.
dogs and the cats that like have no problems. They're just
Mhm.
there for some playtime. That's my kind of vet.
The cat comes in, starts coughing up a hairball, and you're like, "Hold up, is that
Wrong
sick
vet.
or is that a hairball? Okay, cool. It's a hairball. Fine, we'll deal with it.
No, exactly.
It was sick. Get it out of here."
So funny. Well, Mike, thank you for being on the podcast. I think this is maybe the first time, definitely with a guest, that I have gotten so emotional. I've definitely cried on the podcast before, but I like it's different when it's a solo episode, you know? So
Mhm.
again, with like from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate the ways in which you have like transformed me in my life
Oh,
without even recognizing it. And I want you to hear that live with my own voice, with tears in my eyes again. Um, just to know, how powerful and impactful the things that you do are. And so again, thank you for being here.
do you have 1 extra minute so I could leave you with a
Oh my
message
God,
that I think would benefit you?
absolutely.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, but
Take
I
it.
just want
Nothing
to
to do.
mention one of my favorite quotes, not from one of my favorite movies, but from one of my favorite quotes. Night at the Museum 3. I don't think it's anyone's favorite movie, but I saw it in theaters, and there's a part at the end of the film where Ben Stiller has had enough. Things get crazy at the museum. If you're not familiar, it's you don't need 3 movies to know that things get crazy there. And he's quitting. He's finally had it. He's like, I'm not doing 4. And he's he tells Robin Williams' character, who's playing Teddy Roosevelt, he says, I don't have any idea what I'm going to do tomorrow. And Teddy Roosevelt looks up at him with a gleam in his eye and he says, how exciting. And he gets back up on the horse and, becomes a statue again. And it's just that has stuck with me through a lot. There's been a lot of uncertainty in my life and trying to plan ahead for everything. And some of you out there have a 20-step plan right now. And if it doesn't go exactly the way that you want it to go, and you're going to beat yourself up over it. But life does not work that way. It, figure out what step 1 is, and then grant yourself the grace in understanding that step 2 will reveal itself when it's supposed to. You don't know what's coming. And how exciting. Katie, you are fantastic. And I am so thankful and so grateful to know you and to get to see you grow and to hear all of these wonderful plans that you have. And I am here for you in any capacity that you need.
I
Thank you
appreciate
for
you
being
so
my friend.
much. I would like to give you the space. When people want to find you, where can they go find you?
Oh, I don't want them to find me. You can find me at Mike Needs a Plan pretty much everywhere. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I don't know when this is going to come out, but we might have a group coaching thing by then. Um, but you can always find me Instagram and TikTok at Mike Needs a Plan.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for crying with me, letting me cry, holding that space. Oh, Lord, this episode has been a roller coaster, but thank you everyone for listening, and I will see you next Tuesday. Thank you for listening to another episode of Solidarity on the Bench with KDU. If you enjoyed this podcast or want to submit a question for future guests, you can follow the podcast Instagram at SolidarityPod or follow the host at katie.eu. See you next Tuesday.